The girl pondered how foolish it was to put bans on Kimio. Humans abuse the world. The girl thought human fear was a hellish thing. She thought of the past, in which there had been a war between the Kimio population, whose population had grown, against humanity. Since the Kimio were a third on planet Earth, some of them wanted to completely destroy humanity. Humans defended their families and land while the Kimio hunted and killed. However, not all Kimio followed this path. The head of all Kimio, Kaki, the father of the rebellion, power clouded his mind. There were 150 strongest Kimio in the world, with about 250,000 other Kimio, and the top 10 strongest were called divine level. Kamen was number 1, and because of him, the war lasted 124 years, ending in 1957. Even though Kane was the strongest, he was killed. That kind of expense was only because of the war heroes. In 1942, children were at the front. People were discussing that war is terrible, and it's not kindergarten. The soldier saluted the girl. She looked at the children sent by headquarters. She announced to the children that her name was Forbes, and she would be their commander. The commander knew that the children had lost everything, even their parents. The commander knew that some of the kids were Kimio, so she split up their training. She announced that the children's lives would go very differently from now on. The next day their training began. The child thought about how he liked the fact that he was well fed and clothed. The child felt safe here. He was approached. He looked at the children who approached him, and there were 2 children, Elsa and Kevin. The girl asked the boy how old he was, and he admitted he was 8. The girl said she couldn't leave her brother Kevin, as it was her mom's last request. The boy didn't mind at all. It was raining, the sound of bombs falling. Bombs? The soldier turned to the colonel and notified her that Kane's troops were attacking. The girl was angry, as there was no way the enemy could know their location. The soldier reported that he had given the information to the major, and he would be here soon. The girl told him to take her to him. The major's name was Jamie Altham. The girl said she didn't know how they were found, but she planned to evacuate. The man said they could do without. Now the headquarters was under air attack. The soldiers took the children, but some were missing. The man was surprised at something. The subordinates didn't understand what had happened, and he ordered them to move to a safe distance. The girl told Jamie to give the enemy a good thrashing. The enemies discussed the fact that human flesh had come to them. Kimio was asked to tell them where the others were hiding. The man simply tilted his hat and tensed his arm, from which many red threads came out. It was a web of death that grabbed all the enemies. The child was telling the others that there was no way they could stay where they were now, as they would be found. The girl asked if they would be safe. The boy reassured the girl by promising that they would never be found. At that time, one Kimio was passing by. He noticed a boy who didn't expect them to be found. The children began to run away from the huge number of Kimio. The boy told the other children to run away, and when asked if he would go with them, he said that he promised they would be safe. The boy's hair caught fire. The girl was shocked, and the boy got covered in fire and told the kids to hurry up. While the man was catching the enemies with his threads, the young teacher was killing the enemies with his fire. They continued their skirmishes and eliminated many enemies. The man noticed the fire in the rear and instantly headed there. When he saw this picture, his eyes opened wide with shock. The boy, on the other hand, reflected that he now had a purpose in life. The man asked the boy's name, and he introduced himself as Leo Thomas. The hero took the picture. He looked at it with a very wistful face. There was a picture of him with his friend and teacher. At that time, they were incredibly happy. In the past, the soldiers were unable to hold their positions due to the strong onslaught of the enemy. One of the soldiers told the commander that they couldn't hold out any longer. He said to just wait, to which the soldier got angry. They saw an airplane. They immediately cheered up. The plane was firing machine guns into a crowd of enemies. It was Major Altham who was flying the flying machine. One of the enemies told the Kimio to shoot down the plane that was firing at them. The Major said he was going into active support mode. The private started to take off his seatbelt. The commander ordered him to hurry up, and he quickly climbed onto the wing of the plane. He hooked himself with his belt up to the aircraft and said they could put in position. Kimio asked his general for permission to fire, but he was devastated as it was too late. A very strong explosion came flying at the enemies. The soldiers were very surprised and pleased to have such a destructive force on their side. The enemies were burning alive. The guy who released the fiery blast was a young teacher. He turned to his master and said that he thought he would be more useful down below with the other people. The commander said he would kill the guy if he left the plane. The guy smiled broadly and said it was too late. He pretended to unbuckle his seat belt and fell out, to the angry shouts of his commander. Leo flew thinking that it was stupid to take off his mask. The enemy wanted to shoot Leo. At another time, in a building, the commander was talking to a man, and talking about being good with a knife. In a similarly creepy voice, the man said he hoped the knife was intimidating enough. The man heaped tall said he would tell everything. The commander said the general made a wise choice. The man congratulated the general on being the wisest of all the men he had captured. At the time, Leo was fighting on the front lines. He liked killing enemies very much, as that was his goal. A few hours later, the major arrived at the girl who said hello to him. The girl rasped to the man and Leo. They talked about Leo and how strong he was. The man said that the boy has an incredibly strong talent, and if used incorrectly, he would be a serious threat. The girl, on the other hand, told the man to finally admit that she feels like a big brother. The girl told the bad news, namely that the enemies had captured the airbase and gave the task of destroying it. The girl said that she had no men available and sent a man along with Leo on the mission. Leo at the time said that many soldiers are talking about the fact that Leo should be given a private plane. The man, on the other hand, said he wouldn't trust the guy with even a can opener. When Leo heard about the mission, he lit up and was incredibly excited. Leo was approached by a girl who congratulated him on his first raid. It was Elsa, the very same girl that the guy had once saved. She approached the happy Leo and said it was time for him to return to her. Leo and the man arrived at an airbase controlled by the enemy. The man explained that it was a supply center, so they should completely destroy the planes that were here. The man very stealthily got close to one of the enemy soldiers. Together they captured the enemy. Leo told that here are people who were recently kidnapped. The guy was very happy, because now this mission could turn into a rescue mission. The man told the guy to calm down, as these were hostages of the enemies. They were the so-called human shields that the enemies were using. They talked and came to the conclusion that they needed to be as quiet as possible. Suddenly the commander's face changed. He saw the devil. Leo didn't understand what the man was talking about. It turned out that the strongest Kimio, Kate, was on this avio base. Kane, nicknamed the Demon Kimio, was right in front of the men. Leo reported that after dialoguing with the colonel, he got the information that the entire army was heading towards them. The man said that they didn't have that much time and Kane would be able to leave. The man realized it was certain death for both of them, but said they needed to hold him off. The enemies walked in front of their leader. The man used his ability to eliminate them instantly. Kane reacted and used his ability as a fireball flew at him. A psyker ability, it is unknown what it can do, but if used properly it can kill all living things. Kane asked the army if it was an army, in a voice that sounded like thousands of souls. The man said hello, and Leo also said hello to his most important and powerful enemy. The man looked at the pair pruriently and assumed they had come to swear allegiance to their new master. The man said they were two psychos looking for a thrill. Kane said their dialogue was not finished and held out his hand. The man ordered Leo to dodge, and the man did not hesitate to follow the order. The enemy used the ability on the ground. He said it was useless to run away and raised his hand. The ground was filled with lightning and started to move. Leo saw it and was very surprised as there was a huge wave of earth behind his back. The guy used his ability to accelerate and dodge, but several more waves appeared and followed him. Leo wondered how long they would follow him while dodging the powerful attacks. He decided to fly into the air, but the ground clung to his leg, and later his body was completely enveloped by the earth. Only his eye was left free. The man screamed with anger. The snake hissed angrily. The man used his threads to split the ground. Thanks to the man, Leo managed to get away from the attack. Poor flew up to the enemy, and the man asked if the guy knew how Kane's talent worked. The attacking man explained that to defeat Kane you need at least 3 talents of the same power, and finally he gave Leo a mission to survive. The boy accepted the order, and used his ability to launch a fire attack on the enemy. The place was covered in flames from which a snake jumped out. Leo somehow managed to dodge this attack, and the man told Leo not to let the snake bite himself. This is part of Kane's talent, and once the snake tastes someone, it will take their soul. The enemy got close to the man and asked if they had finished their study. He said the men should have stayed in their mother's wombs. Leo said that the enemy should fire the man who poured his mouth as it was not working well. The girl was fully equipped at the time. Another girl asked how many tanks they would take, and the commander replied that they would use all they had. One of the soldiers told the bad news, namely that according to his data, the loading of the Zamalites will soon be over, so he assumed that the commander and Leo were in a fight, which equals that they are corpses. The girl hearing this was shocked. At that time, Leo and men from both sides attacked the enemy. Leo tried to strike with his foot, but Kane grabbed man's face, and with his ability, pushed both of them away. Leo and the man flew a great distance away. They were still alive, but they were at their limit. The man said that they had only a short time to live. Leo saw a very scary picture, a lot of people exhausted from life in cages. After something like that, Leo was angry, and couldn't use his power to its full capacity because of the risk of injuring people. At that time, a head appeared to the right of Kane, who asked if Leo and the man's loved ones were alive. The man told Kane that they didn't care about his threats. Kane said that if the boys followed him, they would be fine. The man used the ability of his threads and directed them into the ground. They burst out from the ground near Kane and covered him completely. At the same time, Leo filled a metal knife with fire and used the Oro's ability, after which a huge sword of fire appeared in his hands. He instantly roared at the enemy. The same one called the guy's efforts a disgrace. Leo jumped up and told the monster to fight him. Kane said that was very good. The man yelled for Leo to retreat. At that time, the snake broke free from the threads and was right in front of the guy's face, intent on taking his soul. The man used his ability and freed Kane. The enemy was angry and pointed his hand at the cage with the men, saying that the blood would be on the men's hands. Leo reacted instantly and ran to protect the innocent men. He stood right in front of the cage, even though he realized that after this attack he would probably die. The man used the threads that covered Leo's torso. The guy knew what was coming and didn't want it. The man, on the other hand, called Leo a stupid boy. Kane didn't understand the meaning of this sacrifice and was ready to use the ability. And the man finally said he didn't adopt the boy to die like that. He called the times they fought the best times of their lives. He covered people with webs and became a human shield for them. The man said that Leo would become very strong in the future and they could win thanks to him, so he should live. Leo looked one last time at the man who had become very dear to him. At that time, the girl gave the order to move forward. She announced that the lives of their 2 men were at stake and the opportunity to kill the strongest enemy. Many tanks headed for the battle site. After the enemy hit, a huge area was destroyed and only the cage was untouched. Leo was very sad. The man's body was torn in 2. The enemy, however, called the man's body fragile, akin to an inferior Kimio. Leo was overwhelmed with anger towards Kane, and the enemy was surprised that the guy decided to continue. A huge pillar of flame rose towards him, and Kane asked if the guy knew the origin of the power spray. He said one word, Thanatos. Leo's body transformed, and he looked like a god. The enemy said Leo had a brotherly talent. At that time, the army went into battle. The girl destroyed the tank. She ordered the men to continue the attack. The enemy began to tell that a long time ago, when no one knew about abilities yet, there were 4 brothers, each with a different talent. They were the first Kimio. During their fight, Kane told a story, namely that at that time the brothers were worshipped as gods. He said that they possessed the talents that started it all. He said to join them, and not to stand in the way as before. Kane threatened that Leo would experience true fear if he refused. The boy said that even the mere existence of the enemy was harmful to the land. He said he was given orders to survive, and it was Kane who killed the man. Leo said he wished the master had survived to see how strong he made him. Kane called resistance the choice of fools and pointed his hand at the guy. Leo realized he couldn't win, but he was ready to give his life to protect others. Kane said Leo's death would leave him no honor. Out attacks collided. Much to the enemy's surprise, his defenses cracked. He used a Cerberus to devour Leo's soul, but he himself blocked the snake's mouth with his hand. The enemy said that it was a big mistake, but the enemy's face changed as Leo's soul didn't leave his body, and he attacked Kane with incredible strength. The man started coughing in pain and used a force that knocked Leo back. Boy Euro leaving a trail of blood behind him. From the cage, Leo heard the voices of people begging for help. The souls absorbed by Kane were being saved, and that gave Leo some time. He went to the cage and warned the people to hold on. He spat on it with his back and used the fire in his legs to start moving it. At that time, the enemy was dealing with the souls that had escaped. Kane asked how much time they had left, and the soldiers said their plane was ready. At that time the army arrived. From the main goal was to save people. The girl found Leo lying unconscious. That very evening, Kane escaped. The soldiers evacuated the civilians. The girl cried as she saw the man's body. 1 month later at the General Staff Hospital, some men came in and asked if Major Leo Thomas was here. He said he was. Kane turned out to be dead. As he died of his injuries, Leo was honored as a hero. He hated his fame as it reminded him of how he lost someone very dear to him. Talent transfer. Talent is a birth defect that appears in babies who can no longer be called human. There are 3 ways to get a talent. Talent transfer is only available to people with a lot of experience. After that they die. Usually this is available to the top 150 for transferring strong talents. Talent extraction is an illegal way of forcibly extracting talent. Most likely Kane used it. Or possession of an object. These are objects in which the talent is developed, and they can allow the bearer to use it. The hero thought about the fact that before the bans, he was used to being a man among Kimio in his dojo. Master Leo was like a father to Cho Hard. They participated in many martial arts competitions. The hero described the fight between the 2 Kimios as a magnificent scene. At that time, all that power walking around without worrying about anything, but it wasn't always like that. Battle of Waterloo, 1815. Unlike today, a group of soldiers received the command to fire, and shots were fired. The opponents were in the trenches at the time. The soldiers asked the colonel for a reaper to be sent to them. Without one they would lose. The commander said he had called for a reaper. Kimio were very rare at that time, and for centuries too. The messenger ran to the men. The man told the messenger to rest, and he started talking about Napoleon sending a huge amount of reinforcements. He asked for the priest's help. The man closed his eyes and thought for a while. He hoped that Napoleon would not force him to send the reaper. Kimio said he was still a soldier, and he was willing to serve for his homeland. His name was Jack. His father told his son to come back safe and sound because the country needed him. Kimyo were the ones whose hands had built countries, and for now out of fear. The soldiers saw a reaper on a horse coming to their rescue. The commander ordered everyone to lower their heads. At that time, the opponents saw one soldier did not understand anything. They thought he was crazy to march on an army alone. The order was given to shoot. The guy jumped up and dodged the bullets. The commander again ordered the soldiers to lower their heads. And the guy made a serious look. His side opened up with some purple thing, and a thread came out of it, with a sharp weapon on the end of it. The guy grabbed it, and with all his might began to twist it. From such an attack a huge number of people just flew into the air, and the Allies, only thanks to the order, were able to survive. The Napoleonic War was won only thanks to the 3 Kimyo. The guy continued to attack the enemies. He jumped up, and from the air used his weapon again. The opponents tried to shoot at him, but in the end, one by one, they were defeated. Only the captain remained, who noticed very late that all the men were missing, because in a moment the guy's blade was already near his throat. Though history hid their names, they made a great contribution to it. They may have been rare then, but now they are in great numbers, so society has learned to accept Kimyo. Now life without Kimyos seems unreal, because with the help of their talents they help society. The hero remembered the first time he won thanks to his teacher. The doctor was incredibly surprised. He looked at the hero's physical stats, and was simply stunned, since all of the hero's wounds were completely healed. The doctor even laughed, for this was the first time he had ever seen such regeneration, for even the hero's pulled wisdom tooth had returned. The doctor was overjoyed, as the hero was now fully healthy and had become Kimyo, who had been given the talent. The hero's eye was restored, and the doctor was just as happy about it. The screws that were in the hero's body had melted and disappeared, but the scars remained, so the doctor wanted to keep an eye on him. 1 week later, there was an explosion on the overpass that was caused by Kimyo, Solomon's brothers. They were angry about the construction of the pipelines and decided to serve them all. The police pointed guns at their enemies and asked them to surrender. Kimyo didn't listen, and the police started shooting to kill. Kimyo didn't care about bullets, they were made of steel and stone. The Steel brother grabbed a car and threw it straight towards the police. Many people were hurt in the explosion. Cho Hard was on his way to the scene. He put masks on his face and ran there. When he got there, he jumped off the roof and exposed his chest. At that time, another person was also running, his body covered in lightning. The Kimyo continued to rampage and break everything they could get their hands on. Iron said that people were incredibly easy to control. A car hit the stone man, knocking him back. Iron didn't understand why he didn't hear back from his brother, and when he looked back at him, he was immediately hit by the hero's fire attack. They were hurt, and the brothers even wept. The hero and his friends said hello. The enemies said they were ready for it, and began to merge. They were now confident in their power. The friends said he was hungry, and now they were determined to finish this quickly. The enemy complained that the hero and his friend had managed to stop them last time. The policeman asked what they should do since Kimyo had arrived. The captain said to clear the bridge, as it was not their battle now. The hero attacked with fire attacks, and the friend got closer to strike. The enemy called them enemies of the people. He managed to stop the hero's friend's attack. At the same time, the hero launched a volley of fire. The enemy turned around and saw that Cho Hard had disappeared. At that time, the friend was already behind the back of the enemy. He began to strangle him in parallel, holding him. The hero prepares a strong attack. He summoned a lot of fire and squeezed it into a thin needle. The enemy started begging for mercy and saying that he and his brother were joking. The hero was intent on attacking with the newly created spear of fire. Cho Hard threw it with all his might, and it flew at an incredible speed. A moment later it slammed into Kimyo's body, and there was a huge explosion. The threat was neutralized, and they were captured by the police. The inspector thanked the hero and his friend for their help. Another policeman asked if they should arrest all the Kimio. The inspector said they had already arrested all the Kimio they had seen. This made Cho Hard and his friend laugh. They said goodbye to each other and left. They headed to Island Kimok's guest mansion. The hero's friends said they were back, and once again thanked Hemlock for letting them stay. Hemlock said there was nothing to thank him for. The hero asked if there was any information on Rokash. The friend complained about Kimio's ban, as it was getting in the way. Also, the friend said that from the new sensei always keeps them in suspense. The hero said that the regulators are acting as they should, and he is not harming civilians. The girl said that the hero and his friend were all over the news as usual. The girl said that his spear was terrible. Che Hard started to defend his attack, and the girl mocked him. A little while later, the hero was walking down the hallway. The girl said that this place must be a landmark. The hero said that they are literally hiding here, so guests are a bad idea. The girl, on the other hand, continued to praise the place, saying many interesting facts. The hero said that it was indeed a rich family. The girl saw that the hero was worried about something, and said that she would be happy to see him. The guy smiled right up to his ears. Later that night, the hero headed to an orphanage on the west coast. He was hidden by a hood and walked up to the counter. The girl said the guy's name, and he asked her not to do that, since there was an order to arrest all Kimios on the spot. The girl apologized and said that the same one had been asking about the hero for months on end. Later, Che was already walking up the stairs. Before entering, he got a little worried. He stood in front of the doors and thought about what he would say. At that time, the doors opened and a happy girl jumped out and immediately jumped into the guy's arms. The sister was very glad to see her brother. The hero was genuinely surprised and proud that his sister had incredibly high grades. The girl decided to boast that she was the head of her class. Che Hard asked what the girl wanted when she took first place in the exam. She smiled sincerely and sincerely asked to take her to even Tevin and the others. The hero stood up and said he was willing to do anything for Yukiko. The girl was angry that he didn't visit her, and very angry that she was making money by fighting. The hero came up to her and asked her not to be angry for long. He told her to brush her teeth and rest. They hugged goodbye and the girl asked to visit her more often. At Uncle Louis's mansion, the girl said the day had come. She said that if the boys managed to move her, she would tell them about her talent and what she had hidden. She said it would be hard for the men to surprise her because she is Leo Thomas's granddaughter. She asked them to prove to her that the guys are really not ordinary Kimios. Tevis was the first to come out to pass the test. He immediately used his rhino skin talent. The girl was surprised that the guy was able to perfect his talent, but said that there was still room to grow. He told her that he had 3 skins: rhino, lion, and blacksmith. The lion skin gives more strength, but the defense is reduced, but the blacksmith skin uses his blood as fuel, so every time he tried it his heart stopped. He was determined because he wanted to show what it meant to be a team tank. His pelt began to change appearance and transform. It was a lion's pelt. From the man, one could feel the pressure of the king of beasts himself. He instantly disappeared from sight. The man farted and his inspection ended. The hero was next. He was determined to show all he could do. He once again created his spear out of fire. Against the hero were the fireplace mannequins. He put on a mask and started the battle against the mannequins, using his spear for close combat. The girl smiled broadly, for Che was progressing very quickly. The hero swung. He had a target in front of him to test his long-range attack, and he sent the spear straight at it. It flew at a tremendous speed. The fiery spear hit right in the center of the target. The girl though said that carelessly but called the attack not bad, though she was actually amazed at his progress. Azam came out next, who was just as serious. He had 15 targets that he had to eliminate in 3 seconds. The girl gave the command to start, and the man disappeared. The girl evaluated the man's actions in her head and praised him. He was breaking dummy after dummy with ease, and his ordeal quickly came to an end. The other guys were very serious as the contents of the bag were of very great interest. The girl decided to raise the men's spirits even more, and said she would show them what was inside the bag if they performed well. The men listened, and their noses bled. The girl said she had heard of Louis's talent. The man's body began to be covered with ashes. Everyone was surprised. It was the talent of the ashes of the fathers that allowed them to control the mass of ashes. He used an incredible technique, namely an ash hydra of enormous size. The girl asked him not to smile so stupidly and said that the man wasn't bad. She said she was even scared for a second. She also emphasized that men grow up. Anton was next. The girl asked what he was going to do, and the hero very insistently asked the girl to step back a bit. The man could replace a part of himself with anything. He, with a not-so-serious face, replaced himself with 30% of Kong. The others got excited as 30% was quite a lot. The man was covered in a cloud of dust, his tail appeared, and then his face changed. It spoke and was angry, as some man had summoned the mighty Kong. The girl said that everyone had performed well, but they would not do well against Rokash, so they should try harder to find out the contents of her bag and her talent. The men were very upset. During the night, a man was watching the house where the hero and his friends were staying. He reported what happened. On the phone, the man said that they should not wait long, and the man replied that they should not hurry. He said the guy's time would come soon. He said they would get back what was taken from them. There was an explosion. Something flew out of there at great speed. It was a robot that was almost completely destroyed. He said it wasn't part of their plan. Eve was also hurt. The house was failing as well. The girl said they didn't sign up for something like this, as their opponent was a real sadist. It was a man. One of the guys asked why their opponent was naked, and Rokash was very happy because it was the first fight in a huge period of time, and he was having a lot of fun fighting. He had a lot of questions. He wondered what the guys were thinking when they went into the pit bull's house. Rokash knew there was no way they could have found him by accident, and asked how they did it, but before they did he decided to show them his talent. The man smiled a full smile. There were people watching the fight. The man suggested that they should have sent more Titans. The man replied that it was just a test to see how strong their subjects were. The girl was angry, and said she would kill the enemy. Her friend shouted to her not to hurry, but she didn't listen. Rokash used his ability, and cut off her wing and arm. He grabbed her other wing, and slammed her to the ground with all his might, saying that she was no different from a pigeon. She begged for mercy, but the man was merciless. He killed the girl with a precise kick of his foot right on her head. This amused Rokash even more. Another opponent entered the battle. He tried to attack his enemy with his hammer, but he easily dodged. He tried another attack, but Rokash didn't take him seriously. Suddenly his face changed. He started to be pulled towards the test subject. He used a magnetic ghost and tried to kill his enemy with a hammer blow, but he easily dodged it at the last moment. Later another blow followed, which Rokash was able to dodge just as easily. Rokash was about to strike when the man pulled out a gun and fired a shot, which the enemy was able to dodge. Before he could react, the test subject was already torn apart. Rokash used the momentum, after which the man was stabbed through. Rokash was joined by his allies. They approached the survivor and told him that he had chosen the wrong team. He realized the situation was dire. The subordinate began to complain that they had a very hard time finding the place, and they had messed up everything. Rokash ordered to tell how they found them. The robot smiled and pointed a huge gun at Rokash. There was an explosion. People discussed what a waste of parts it was. Kagi was ordered to keep checking on the group of boys. At that time, a dome appeared at the site of the explosion, and inside were all the enemies who had managed to survive. They couldn't understand how they had been figured out. One of Rokash's men found the spare part and called it technology on a whole new level. He didn't understand how technology that couldn't existed. Later, at the mansion where the hero lives, there the whole team was watching the news where they were talking about a terrorist attack. The terrorist's specialty is cybernetic body parts, or whole bodies. It was called the worst terrorist attack since the war. There were 38 dead and 200 wounded people. The girl cried when she saw the news, and the other guys were very sad. And the hero was incredibly angry. The hero asked for all the information about the terrorists. But all that was known was that it was cyberchemio, which in practice should not be possible. The hero said that was enough for him, as he didn't need to know who he was killing. The friend looked at the hero with surprised eyes. The next day at Republic Bank, the policeman greeted the girl. She walked up to the bank counter and asked if she could make a deposit. Suddenly there was an explosion behind her. The one who attacked the bank said she could smell chemio. The girl told the employee to hide in the vault. The enemy noticed the girl and immediately tried to strike and succeeded in punching the shoulder of the girl, who was chemio's class. Farah used bone art and cut off the enemy's paw. She was determined to hold the terrorist until the police arrived. The enemy, on the other hand, was sure she was stronger than chemio. She attacked the girl and used her bones as a ranged weapon. The enemy said she could see the girl's movements like an open palm. They clashed in a fight. The police arrived at the scene where there were many dead. The commander asked how many dead there were, and was told there were 13 civilians and 8 police. Thanks to Farah, they had managed to put the enemy to sleep. The commander was saddened that they'd lost Kimio's rank, who always helped them. The policeman was saddened and couldn't understand what kind of monster was able to kill the girl. The hero and his friends arrived at the scene. Che asked how they could help the police. The man was happy to see the hero. She led the men along. He told about the girl's death and wanted to show what killed her. The hero was saddened that the girl had been killed. The policeman promised revenge. The enemy was nailed to the wall. At that time, children admired the theater. Hemlock ran a kindergarten, and they came to see him. He said he had promised to look after the children. The girl, however, was glad that even in chaos children could be children. It was as if the enemy felt no fear. She was asked how she was able to kill so many people. She confessed that her talent is foresight, which gives her the ability to see the future. The hero and his friend were interested in the word major talent. The guy tried to interrogate the girl, but she wanted to tell him about his painful death. She noticed that the guys wore masks, and the hero calmed her pride. The girl used her power on Che, and she went to a scary place. She felt terribly hot, and she didn't know where she was. She saw a man and didn't recognize him. She was terrified because she didn't realize what had been done to her. The hero from the future looked at her with contempt. All she said was that Che had killed them all. After that, the girl didn't speak anymore. The only thing she did was scream. Her friends noticed that she was screaming as the hero approached. Another was surprised that Kimio could have multiple talents. One of the friends decided to summon Kong and ask him. The one started to get immediately angry about being summoned. Kong said he would answer the question. He said it was a forced talent transfer. This girl now has 3 talents, even though she was originally born from one. The policeman said it was illegal, and they needed to find the 2 dead Kimio. He went to discuss the information with the team. At that time, the girl was walking, and a balloon flew away from her. It was picked up by a man who was a terrorist. The man the hero was staying with said hello. The enemy introduced himself, but the man immediately smelled something wrong. He grabbed his sword and ordered the men to get off his land. He seemed tiny in front of the cyborg. The enemy looked at him with his scarlet gaze, which frightened the man. Now that everyone was quiet, he introduced himself again. The hero's friend was calming the children, and the enemy was using missiles. Tevis managed to activate the lion's skin and protected the children. If suddenly he used the rhino, the explosion would have killed the children. The girl and Azam were determined to fight as Tevis would protect the children. The enemy offered to start the fight, and the girl asked for her red bag. Enemy was sure of his cyborg's victory and expressed that, in his opinion, all Titans are the strongest. The cyborg grabbed his cloak and threw it away, showing what a Grimdor general looked like. The man with the speed ability prepared to attack. At that time, the girl was already airborne, ready to strike with her foot. The robot was able to block this attack with his cyber arm. The new master of the guys was surprised, and the cyborg called her very strong. At that time, the police were gathering information about the criminals. One of them found information that the enemies called themselves Titans. It turned out that all attacks were made exactly in the interval of 7 minutes. The captain asked about the hostages, if they were there, and if they were talking at all. One of the subordinates reported that because the attacks were made on completely different locations, they were unable to take hostages. One girl reported that the witness statements from the bank had come in. The captain was ready to listen to them. The girl said that the Titan woman didn't want to commit a robbery, she wanted to destroy Kimio. At that time, the hero said that he talked to the police and realized that the new deposits to the bank would not arrive until today. The friend couldn't understand why he would attack an empty bank. At the time, the battle with the cyborg was in full swing. The speedy man was dodging the Taka and trying to counterattack while the girl was hitting the cyborg hard. From her attack, even the high-tech metal started to crack. She was surprised by the cyborg's strength, and the cyborg began to turn his hand into a dangerous weapon that he used to attack the guys. Tiger told the friends to save themselves. The cyborg attacked the girl, who managed to dodge. While fighting, she asked for her bag. The speedy guy said he'd take care of it. The policeman had known Farah personally for many years, and couldn't imagine who wanted her dead. At the time, the friends couldn't understand why they would risk their lives to go after S rank. They had in fact paid with their lives without getting anything. The police girl reported that another Titan had appeared and killed the high-ranking Kimio. It got to the hero, he turned around and started running home, as he assumed the enemy's plan was to split them up. The policeman couldn't understand the guy's reaction, and Che explained that the Titans were after Kimios. At that time, the speedy guy was looking for that very thing. Going into the teacher's room, he remembered that it was the first time he was in a woman's room. There he found the thing wrapped in plaid. It was just what he needed. He had no sooner touched it than it began to fall, and when it touched the ground, the man's face was contorted with fear. The thing had made a huge hole in the floor. He didn't understand how to get it to the girl. At that time, the coach fought the cyborg, dodging and counterattacking. At the moment the cyborg decided to point the missiles at the kids, Tevis was standing there, ready to stand up for the kids, and when the missiles came close, he cut them. There was an explosion, but he said they were fine. The girl asked him to hold on a little longer, and the man was at his limit. The girl didn't dodge another attack and fought it with her bare hands. The cyborg looked at her with a creepy look, and the girl backed away, as she felt that she was about to be attacked. Cyborg opened his mouth, and a red sphere of energy began to appear. It was a beam that destroyed everything it touched. After it was used, the place it was aimed at was in ruins and burning. The cyborg said he was stronger than the girl. The master was lying on the ground as it was a very strong attack. The lion told the girl to get up and fight. She told the man to defend the children. The speedy guy apologized for being late, got into a stance, his body covered in lightning, and his hair began to glow. An unknown symbol appeared in his eyes. It was a Karen technique. He pushed the bag with all his might, which started flying straight into the battlefield. The girl, on the other hand, was glad Azam had found a way. The bag flew straight at the girl, but she easily stopped it with a kick. The cyborg didn't understand why the woman was smiling. She explained that from that moment on she was smashing her prey. The man watching the fight forgot to mention that the girl in front of them was a legend herself. She took hold of the bag and lifted it with ease. The enemy began to shout. he was still confident of victory. The girl told them that she was ranked 147th. When the students heard that she was in that 150 were surprised. There was silence on the battlefield for a moment. The girl said that she didn't like attention, so she hid it. The enemy girl opened that thing, and it turned out to be Pandora's chest. It has infinite space inside, and the chest only chooses one owner. Enemy thought about how incredible it was to see this item in person, also didn't understand how she got it. Fast Guy, on the other hand, was still surprised that his master was in the top 150 strongest. The girl stretched out her hand and summoned Sergo Murasama. Her talent was that she could wield any weapon, and right now she had a katana. The enemy realized that the girl's combination of talent and item was very good. This katana also had talent. The enemy cyborg was angry, and the girl told him to calm down. This started to anger the enemy even more. The girl, on the other hand, decided to repeat her words, pulling out a blade that released an incredible aura. Cyborg attacked the girl. As before, his attack flew at incredible speed, but this time, the girl did not dodge, and one swing of the sword shattered the weapon of the enemy. Cyborg was surprised and frightened. The girl prepared herself for the attack. The enemy started to get nervous and directed a long-range weapon. It did not scare the girl, and she smiled. When the missiles flew close enough, she chopped them with a precise movement of her sword and headed towards the enemy. The enemy tried to attack in close combat, but the master had no problem blocking the attack. He easily chopped off the Titan's arm and then began to attack the body. Even the metal melted from her blows. A second attack followed, and the enemy tried to counterattack, but the girl easily dodged and jumped up to deliver a powerful blow from the air right on the enemy's chest. The cyborg tried to counterattack, but the girl retreated, leaving her sword inside the cyborg. She stepped back to a safe distance. The cyborg said he could not be killed so easily. He started yelling in anger that he hadn't eaten in days. He began to say he would eat the girl and the children around him. The master was amused by this. She reached out and summoned a second weapon that had Elliot's talent. The girl's hand took a strange shape, and she told the robot to attack. It directed its next attack, and the girl couldn't wait to see how mechanical this robot was. The attack flew towards the girl, but when it hit, it was shattered. The master instantly moved and was behind her opponent, cutting his legs in parallel. The man fell to his knees and began to scream in pain. He tried to use the grim scream again, but the girl was next to him, and with a stab of her knife, she punctured his neck. She pushed off his head and jumped high. She was incredibly angry and summoned her next weapon. It flew towards her. It was the two axes that gave her the Escheer talent. The cyborg was startled, and the girl instantly moved and struck hard with her axes right on her enemy's head. The one felt the incredible pressure and power of the blow. In the evening of the same day, the remaining enemy clapped the girl and said that she had performed well. He knew that the master was a relative of Del Tevis. She said Kagaya would be next. He said hello. He decided to chat for a while, even promising to tell her why they had come here. But he didn't have time to say anything as a spear of fire flew at him. He started screaming when he saw the destructive power of the spear, and said that it could have been his head. The boys came back earlier than the man had planned. He was about to start a battle with the wolves. The girls came to get their children, and together they had to leave. The friend, on the other hand, could no longer use his talent, as he was completely exhausted. At that time, the hero and his friends set out to attack the enemy. He easily dodged the men's attacks. He kept talking and dodging attacks. At that time, no one answered him. The friend attempted a kick to the legs, but the enemy jumped up and commented on the attack. He placed his feet on his friend's weapon and crouched down, showing his superiority. The friend was not confused and immediately tried to kill the enemy, but he jumped in time. He stepped back a little. At the same time, the hero's face was in rage because of the crimes that the terrorists had committed. The enemy said that the hero's face resembled his father. At that time, the guy gave a command to Anton, and on the enemy began to fly wands, from which he dodged. One of the wands flew at great speed, but at the last moment the enemy dodged. At that time, the hero was right in front of him, and without further ado, struck with flames. The enemy could not in any way talk to the guys, although he tried very hard. He dodged Che's attacks with the same ease, as if he were playing with a man. At that time, the friend also approached the enemy. He began to materialize the rod and created Kong's pride, a false staff. Before the enemy knew it, he was sandwiched between two powerful attacks from the hero and Anton. There was an explosion. The hero and his friend were very surprised as the enemy disappeared. He said that the men fought well for amateurs. He said that even though they were close, they failed. The hero assumed that the enemy was using the power of teleportation, and the friend supported his opinion. The enemy suggested they just talk. Still, the men couldn't even touch him. At that time, Azam dragged Tevis and asked if the hero and Anton were all right. The hero asked who the enemy was, and Azam told him that the Titan called this man father. Most likely this man was the cause of the terrorist attacks. The enemy looked up. A man was falling from the sky calling his name. A moment later there was a fall, and it raised a huge cloud of dust. It was the girl who realized who their enemy was, namely the man the organization was hunting for OODE. He was a former 102 in the top of the strongest who had gone missing. The enemy laughed and said he was glad to meet all of them. Tevis started yelling at the enemy for creating cyborgs. And the hero threatened that he had better tell everything, as he has the blood of many people on him. The girl said she'd tear the enemy apart. He said that if he was given a chance, he would explain everything. The girl accused him of trying to hurt the children. She said that the enemy would not leave here alive. He started to get angry, and called them snotheads. He started releasing a terrifying aura, and ordered everyone to shut up. Everything around started to collapse. All the guys started to get into defensive stances, trying to protect themselves from this aura. The enemy called them incompetent kids, and told them to look at what they made him do. He advised the guys to listen calmly, since they were able to piss him off to such an extent. The girl said that the shepherd was originally a top 150, but after the second part of his power awakened, he was immediately declared illegal and disappeared. The enemy's masks all had different effects and expressed different emotions. Now he could easily control them. The enemy began to speak feistily about rage, and how the guys should shut up and listen to him, for their own good. He started talking about how he and his master are really the creators of the Titans, who are just pawns in their goals. He explained that there was a lot wrong in this world, so he told them that he and his master were trying to right the wrongs of the past. He said he would do it by starting a nuclear war against humanity. The girl asked if Kagaya knew what he was up against. He decided because of his good soul to dedicate people. Humans are on top of the world only because of their intelligence. It's natural for a stronger species to devour another. Humans were the strongest until God created Kimio. The first four were called the Great Four. Over the many years, the Kimio bloodline was mixed due to the connection with humans. The Kimio grew weaker each generation, and humanity took the opportunity to enslave them. The enemy declared that the world must be cleansed of humans, and that Kimio should be the one to take over. Friends did not support the opinion of this man. The hero could not understand why he says such words although he kills both weak and strong Kimio. The enemy said that the guys are not far-sighted and revealed that he and the master are already on the second stage of their plan. The first phase was to create nuclear weapons and build an army. The second phase was to kill any Kimio who could interfere with their plans. Those who had the power and decided to side with the humans would be eliminated by the terrorists. He said that if they weren't for them, they were against them. He congratulated the boys on being on the kill list. The enemy explained that the hero's master was also banned because of his talent, but because of his merit in the war, he was granted freedom. He said that the hero and his friends were fools for choosing to serve those who tried to imprison their master because he was too strong. The girl tried to dissuade the boy from listening to this nonsense, as the hero really thought about it. The enemy turned to Andrea. He asked her not to interfere and shut up, because he could kill them all in a matter of seconds. The girl really didn't know how to defeat an enemy of such a level. The enemy turned around and finally wished the guys a pleasant conversation. After that, he disappeared. All the guys gathered in a circle to discuss what happened. The friend said that he believed what the enemy said, and said that the plan had been revealed to them, so they would not be able to stop it. The hero looked to the side, and his pupils dilated. He saw Uncle Island with the bloody body of the man who had sheltered them all. Later that night in the Red House building, there was a meeting where the man welcomed everyone. He announced that today they would discuss important things. After the Rokash incident, enforcing the ban on Kimio had been their main goal. But there was no way they could ignore what they faced today. They had a new enemy in the form of cybernetic assassins. They dared to kill people in front of the whole world. He said they were unworthy of their positions if they couldn't protect their people. He said they had a solution to both problems. By the end of this meeting, calm will be restored. Chief Chancellor Abel has arrived. 2 days after the attack, a huge number of people gathered to honor the dead. A young woman greeted Island's family. It was Island's wife and child. She also said that Island was honored to have such people in his house, and introduced the son of the victim. The teacher began to speak words about the deceased. All the people listened with their heads down. The hero and his friend were no exception. A man came up. He went to Island's grave. Bending down, he told that he lived and died as a hero. He himself was very grateful to Island. A child was crying because his father had died, and the man came over to cheer the family up a little. The man took off his kimono and went to the torch. He took it and asked the hero to come and stand in Leo's place. He made a sad face, and when he came over he lit the torch. The torch was pointed at the grave in the straw that the corpse was covered with. The fire went up, and the hero's body went out with the ashes. The man said that his uncle would continue to fight in the other world. He used his ancestral ash talent and extracted the man's ashes. The ashes began to move and fit into the man's body. This ash, which was their family's talent, consisted of every dead man of their family. The man thanked everyone for their service and what they had done in their lifetime. The story of the first humans. At the beginning of the Kimio race stood 4 brothers, the Great Four. Each of them was given great power: the sun, the ocean, the storm, and their older brother life after death. Athens, Greece. The fiery phoenix flew straight towards the city. There it flew up to a building and turned into a man. He was greeted by his brother. Helios reported that the enemy troops were on their way. They had already taken over the port and would descend on them within the hour. His brother said he wished it would take longer and ordered preparations to begin. Helios' face changed in surprise. The older man said he would be with them soon. Helios started yelling at the men and told them to stand up. The people started to apologize. They were very hot. Helios said they were not their gods and ordered them to go home. The older man said that the younger man was ruining everything. If people decided to worship, let them do it. Helios started to argue with his brother, saying that they are not gods, they can die too. He asked if he needed to remind the elder how much blood he had spilled. He got angry and said he should choose his next words wisely. Another brother intervened in the argument, pissed off that the brothers were fighting over weak people. Helios said that no one asked many of Oceanos. The one said to Hollow and to him, and say it right to his face. They started an argument between them about who was stronger. The eldest went to calm them all down. He hugged his brothers and said they were like mother and father. He said the enemy was coming with a huge army. He said they would get to see their brother's face one last time. The brothers put on their armor and were ready to meet the enemy army. The eldest said they should protect the people with all their might. They had very few warriors, mostly farmers. Achilles came to the brothers and asked for control of the troops. He and Helios talked for a while, and the fiery one said he sympathized with the lad's loss. The lad, on the other hand, said that his father died as a hero, and thanked the Kimio. Ilios told him that the enemy had found a way to revive dead soldiers, so it would be very difficult for them. He ordered the lad to prepare his men for battle. The warriors were already standing and socializing before the battle. The girl warrior was determined to avenge the death of her loved one. Ilios turned into a phoenix, and the men began to await his speech. The one hovered right in front of them in the guise of a great phoenix. He began to tell the people that by defeating this enemy, they could get rid of all their problems. He apologized for his brother and his army, and asked the people to fight with all their might. He also told them that the undead would be against them, so don't be fooled by a familiar face. The other brothers called for Ilios, as the enemy was already near. Death itself was coming at them, and they were going to meet it. Ilios was saddened by the way his brother used the power. He was crabbing souls and turning people into puppets. This was their brother Thanatos. His army numbered a huge number of undead. He, however, looked up in surprise at the top where he saw his brothers. Ilios was the first to arrive. He asked his brother to stop the madness he had created. He heard no reply. The other brothers similarly asked Thanatos to stop, as innocents would die. The brother called the others fools, as they had no idea how powerful he was. He told of Ilios, who was the source of light and destruction, as hot as the sun. Okeanos, who could completely control the ocean. And Katajita, the leader, who is a raging storm, a furious tempest. He didn't have that kind of power. He needed the souls of men to be energized. He was saddened that the brothers did not just keep silent, and they could have stayed out of it. Ilios yelled at his brother because he didn't need people's souls to live a simple life. He said that without souls, he would be weak and would eventually die of old age. He was saddened that no one could understand him. He ordered the undead horde to attack. Achilles and his army were ready to meet the undead horde. The brothers were still trying to stop their brother with words. Ilios was the first to say that if his brother didn't stop, he would be killed. Eventually the three brothers attacked their evil brother. They were closing in on him, and he told Ilios that he had mastered his power better than all of them. And Katajita was a good leader. The enemy aimed the snake at his brother. He had time to react, but it was already near. Oceanum intervened in the fight and started attacking the snakes. The older brother said he knew everything about the younger ones, so he ordered them to get away. Ilios was thrown a great distance away by the force he used, and Oceanus also flew away, only the leader was holding on. He fought back with all his might, and managed to hold on. He headed for the enemy of all mankind with an attack. Snake was ready to attack, but the one who said that Sybaris had grown was able to easily dodge back to the others. He said to watch every step of the enemy. The older brother told Ilios to die, and used his power on him. Ilios got into a stance and wanted to take a hit with his shield. The force slammed into the fire brother, but he steadied himself. Okeanos used one technique that caused a huge wave from the horses. At that time on the battlefield, the humans were fighting the undead. One of the enemies was very similar to one soldier's dead loved one. She let go of her weapon as she thought of the fact that her beloved had returned. She ran into his arms, but he pounced on her and began to devour her. At that time, the enemy was blocking the water attack. Brother told K2 to make a lightning attack, and he charged the force into the sky. This battle looked like a true battle of the gods. It was a pity for Brother to use this technique on his own elder, but he did it. And a huge amount of lightning struck the enemy's body. The one started screaming that his brothers had rebelled against him. He was angry that his brothers had chosen humans over him. At that time, the brother of the sun entered the fray. He told his brother to finally rest, because he had suffered enough. With a Savit's attack, he pierced the body of the snake, and flames began to appear inside it. Seeing this, the enemy was furious. He used his power. The sun brother tried to attack, but the elder's defense was impenetrable. The commander tried to persuade the elder to return to them. The same asked him to shut up, and only wondered how strong the souls of others would make him. Helios cried, and the other brothers were very upset. Now the commander understood. He told Oceanos to act. The ground beneath his enemy's feet began to crack. Before he could be surprised, his feet were enveloped in water. The brother of lightning apologized and used his ability, after which the enemy's body began to be struck by a huge amount of lightning. The brother of the sun also started to attack. The enemy realized that he was about to die, so the three brothers pierced their eldest from all sides. He coughed up blood and turned to the younger ones. Remembering the past, he said they had betrayed their blood. When they hated him, they would face the remnants of their anger.